I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for May the 12th, 2023. The thoughts expressed here in this video are just mine. Pay attention to official local weather offices for the best information and local emergency management for what to do ahead of Cyclone Mocha. So here's Mocha. We talked about in my last video just about a week ago that we would be looking at a cyclone potentially forming, and here we are. You can see the development in that infrared loop over the past day. I'll let that run again. You can see over the past several hours especially, it's really been getting much more organized, and I'm going to pause it at the end here to show something here that is quite concerning to me. I think the center is roughly around here, and this is a very concerning look because what we call these butterfly shaped clouds around the center these are called vertical hot towers. They're thunderstorms, very strong thunderstorms at that are able to quickly wrap around the inner core of a storm. And you can see how they've been wrapping around. If I look here, you can see how this one eventually wraps on the eastern side of the core pretty quickly. And it gets this sort of shrimp look to it, and this is a classic look of a developing cyclone, and a well-developing one at that. Here's a microwave pass we got not too long ago showing that this process is being fairly successful in developing Mocha. You can see a pretty well-built eye wall structure. It's a bit lacking on the eastern side, and that's likely due to some easterly shear still impacting the system here. If you look in the cloud fields east of Mocha, it's a bit hard to see, but there are some clouds having their top sheared off to the west, indicating that easterly shear, though this shear is not too strong and clearly is not impacting Mocha all too much at all. Alongside that shear in the water vapor loop, you can also see the upper level cirrus expanding away on the northern and southern sides, indicating relatively low shear in general and good anticyclonic outflow. That indicates that the system is able to release the latent heat developed by these thunderstorms, and will be able to, unfortunately, set its stage for rapid intensification. Now here's the GFS, and we're going to be looking at the sounding here, and you can see this easterly shear in the mid-levels. You can see where the flow turns more out of the easterly direction there, as when you if you're confused a bit by there of the wind directions, the way wind is defined is by the direction it's coming from. That's why I'm saying easterly shear, but it's traveling towards the west. So you can see that easterly shear there in the mid-levels of the troposphere, and that's the mean is just about 11 knots. Not a very strong shear, but at least for the time being, it might be maybe impacting Mocha a little bit, but with this current structure on infrared, I wouldn't be too surprised in the next microwave pass to see this potentially closed off, and at that point we could start to see more significant intensification. Current estimates are a bit ranging, but I'd say a general consensus would be about 65 to 70 knots, and it is certainly possible that it gets, in fact likely, that it gets much stronger than that. Now here's a GFS. It's again, there's that easterly shear, and watch how this evolves over the next 24 hours. We're going to go out 24 hours, and you can see how the easterly shear does get a bit stronger during the day tomorrow, and the hope would be that this would be enough to hinder Mocha just enough so that we can avoid significant intensification after this time, because after this time the winds are going to become more aligned throughout the entire troposphere. This easterly shear is going to go away pretty much, not entirely, but there will still be some shear, but overall the environment is going to get much more favorable on the final approach to landfall. The hope would be that this shear, being the average on the GFS about 18 knots, that it was able to maybe drive in some of the surrounding dry air. You can see some of this dry air on the outside of the system and towards the southeast. The hope would be that the shear would be able to maybe push this in to the circulation, maybe disrupt and tilt the mid-level center from the low-level center, and perhaps disrupt it so much that maybe the inner core itself would actually fall apart a little bit, though we're not really seeing a lot of guidance supporting that, and it looks like the shear may not be too big of a hindrance. Now this is significant shear. This is around 20 knots, but this is a large system, and I'm going to show you the wind fields when we get towards the landfall time frame on the modeling, but this is a larger system. And unlike smaller systems, these larger systems are able to fend off greater shear values and more dry air more easily. And unfortunately, that may play in favor for Mocha. And as we go towards 48 hours, as we get towards final approach on landfall, you can see how now we don't have easterly shear out of it. We have more southerly flow. And as we get towards, towards 3 days, all this flow is generally out of the same direction. And this is a generally aligned steering flow. And this would likely paint a very favorable picture. And there is some significant shearing here. You can see there is some wind shift with height, and this is also speed shear. It increases with speed with height, but models are not showing this really being too much of a hindrance. And there might be another item that may also help it. And if we look at the 200 millibar flow from the GFS, you might be able to pick it out. It's this strong jet streak here over Eastern Asia. And models are depicting that this system may get in a location relative to this trough, or this jet streak rather, that may be very favorable for it. You can see positioned here, if you know the general flow of an anticyclonic outflow, I'll outline it here in black. You can see it would generally go clockwise, really, in the northern hemisphere, counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere. And that's anticyclonic because cyclonic, or cyclonic storms as they are called in the North Indian Ocean, they spin counterclockwise or clockwise in the southern hemisphere. So this anticyclonic flow is very favorable, and you can see that this would line up well with this entrance region to this jet. And after this entrance region, it gets very fast here, winds above 100 knots aloft, in a great region aloft, and this will unfortunately likely help Mocha more than hindering it. And you can see here's a European on it. I got to go back a little bit. You can see the European shows even a more favorable solution here, with again that outflow streaming right into that entrance region of that jet, and this amazing enhancement region of this jet streak, likely aiding it in intensification. And we've seen now the European come closer to the GFS in intensity in the, I believe at 12Z, it sort of flipped back to the GFS. We'll have to see. I don't know if 18Z is out. I can reload the page, see if it's trying to load now. But I don't know what 18Z will show. Hopefully we see a downtrend, but unfortunately, all models right now are really pointing to a significant storm. And if you're wondering about sea surface temperatures, here's the sea surface temperature plot from Tropical Tidbits, and you can see they're favorable all the way up to the coastline. So we've got favorable atmospherics and we've got favorable oceanic conditions. And this really is not a good sign, as unfortunately we may have another scenario where we have a system that intensifies all the way up to landfall. If not all the way up to landfall, it may reach its peak intensity a little bit offshore, and unfortunately you can't really get much weakening after that point, and by then you could still easily get a very significant cyclone. Now, there is a bit of uncertainty still on exactly where the system will come in. And the GFS is kind of in the middle, coming towards the border of Bangladesh and Myanmar. Then the European is on the northern side, coming into southeastern Bangladesh. And really, the general envelope is stretching from southeastern Bangladesh to more west-central Myanmar. You can see the southern solutions there on the icon, and the H-Dwarf is also a more southerly outlier, you can see there. Now, this has some impacts. This decides who gets the strongest winds. Here's the H-Dwarf coming into this, the coastline. You can see where the hurricane force winds are. And while the exact path does depict or depend on exactly who gets what of the strongest winds, this is a large wind field. You can see how I've outlined that there. This is a significant cyclone, and this is a very large wind field that can easily push a lot of water on to this coastline, even if you're very far away from the center, and especially along where the center makes landfall. There and down the coastline, you could easily see 2 to 2.5 meters plus storm surge inundation above ground. And alongside that, the system's story is not going to end after it comes to landfall. It's going to be tracking inland, and we may see significant rainfall. I'll go to 5 days out on the GFS, and you can just see as the system it tracks generally like this, and you can see just how significant of rainfall falls from the system. You could easily have 200 to 300 millimeters plus of rainfall especially along, I believe there's a mountain range here, and especially along the coastline where the system comes in. So there's all the threats here from this system. And if you're along, especially the immediate coastline of Myanmar and southeastern Bangladesh, it's highly, highly recommended that you evacuate. You can survive the wind, not the water. The water, once it gets into any house, even if it's a well-built structure, the power of water is just simply amazing, and what it can do to a building is terrifying. And you just need to evacuate to be safe. And here is the RAL track map, and you can see this is a bit misleading. It shows the bulk of the tracks generally into Myanmar. I'd say the general envelope of track potential is generally maybe not that far north, but generally about like that. So we have some uncertainty still to work out, and this will only get better in the coming days. You can see we're still about 3 days out, so exactly pinning down where the system makes landfall, we'll never be able to say that. But what we can say for certainty is that there's going to be a significant system coming ashore. This is the IMD page showing a significant surge event just down the coastline from where the system makes landfall. There you can see maximum storm surge 2 to 2.5 meters above normally dry ground. That, of course, will change if the system comes, wherever the system comes ashore. But either way, we're looking at a significant surge event alongside significant wind event. You can see the IMD forecasting a very severe cyclonic storm coming into Myanmar. And I want to point out, I pointed this out on my Twitter, and I'll point it out here. This is a track cone. This is only showing the uncertainty of where the center could track, not the impacts. This is not an impact cone. Impacts will stretch very far from the center, and especially those in Bangladesh and maybe looking at this and thinking, I'm going to be on the northern side, I'll be fine. You can still get significant surge, you can still get significant rain, you can still get significant wind from the system, especially if it comes on this northern side and it follows more the European and comes towards Bangladesh. I will leave the link to the Indian Meteorological Department website down in the description below. I'll leave it at the top of the description. You won't have to click anything, but I'll leave you all with the infrared satellite imagery. I'll try to have more videos out. My schedule's a bit packed for the rest of this week and this weekend, but I will try my best to get more videos out. Stay safe in Myanmar, India, and Bangladesh, and let's hope for the best with Cyclone Mocha.